Ruth Weller was 69 years old when her children changed the locks on the house she had lived in for 38 years. They took the house first, then the savings. Then the blue Buick Ben had bought her in 2016, the one with the heated seats he said would help her back in winter. And before the week was out, Elise took Ruth's wedding ring to have it properly appraised for the estate. She used those words, properly appraised, as if the ring had not spent 46 years on Ruth's hand, through dishwater, hospital rooms, PDA bake sales, and the slow yellow afternoons, when Ben forgot the names of streets he had driven all his life. When there was nothing left to divide, Grant opened a file folder and laughed at the last page. There's still your mother's place in Maine. Ruth looked at him. The Lighthouse. The cottage, he said, if you can call it that. Elise made a small sound into her coffee. Not a laugh exactly. Something worse. Gull Point Light had been dark since 1974. The keeper's cottage had no heat, no proper road, and $8,742.16 in unpaid taxes. A winter storm had torn half the shingles off the north wall. The town had sent letters for years. Ruth's mother, Lydia Morrow, had left it to her in 1991, along with an iron key and a wool coat that smelled of salt even in July. Ben had always said to leave the place alone. Nothing but gull droppings and rot, he said. So Ruth had left it alone. For 33 years. Now Grant slid the paper across his kitchen table, careful not to disturb the legal pad, where he had written columns of numbers in his square, impatient hand. You can have it, he said. Ruth had raised that hand. She had held it when he was 5 and afraid of thunder. She had wiped grape jelly from its knuckles. She had watched it grow broad and smooth and capable of signing things away. Elise sat beside him, with Ruth's ring in a velvet pouch. Ruth looked at the pouch. Then she looked at the tax notice. I'll take it, she said. Neither of them spoke. Outside, a March rain tapped against Grant's picture window. His house sat on a cul-de-sac in Westerville, Ohio, with stone planters and a garage wide enough for 3 cars. Ruth and Ben had given him the down payment in 2009 when the market was low, and Grant said it was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Ruth remembered the cashier's check, $32,000. She remembered Ben's hand shaking slightly when he signed it. Elise leaned forward. Mom, there's nothing there. Then you won't miss it. Grant closed the file. You're not thinking clearly. Ruth put both hands flat on the table. The wood was pale maple, expensive, without scratches. No child had ever done homework on it. No pie crust had ever been rolled there. No one had set down a hot pan and left a ring. I am thinking very clearly, she said. That was the end of the meeting. Not the end of what they had done. Only the end of pretending it was a meeting. Ben had died on February 6, 2024, at 5:18 in the morning. The room had smelled of Vicks, old sheets, and the weak coffee Ruth kept reheating in the microwave. The hospice nurse had stepped outside to call her supervisor. Ruth sat on the edge of the bed and held Ben's wrist long, after there was nothing left to feel. He had been a kind man in ordinary ways. He scraped frost off her windshield. He saved rubber bands around soup cans. He never once remembered to buy the right kind of yogurt. Toward the end, he let Grant handle the accounts, because numbers tired him. Then Grant said it made sense to add his name to the house. Elise said Ruth should simplify things. There were forms. There were signatures. There were afternoons when Ben slept and Ruth sat at the dining room table while her children explained protection to her. Protection, she learned, could look exactly like erasure. 2 weeks after the funeral, Grant said the house was legally his. Elise said the Buick was better off with her daughter in Columbus. The savings had been moved into a family care account. The phrase made Ruth think of a dish with foil over it. When Ruth asked what she was supposed to live on, Grant said, "We'll make arrangements." He had always liked arrangements. Ruth stayed 3 nights in Elise's guest room. The bed had 12 pillows and no lamp on her side. Elise's husband asked if Ruth wanted the television louder, though Ruth had not said she was hard of hearing. On the 4th morning, Ruth packed 2 suitcases. One held clothes. The other held Lydia's wool coat, the iron key, a stack of old letters tied with bakery string, and a framed photograph of Ruth at 10 years old standing beside her mother on a pier in Maine. Lydia had one hand on Ruth's shoulder and the other raised against the sun. She looked as if she were shielding her eyes from something she had already decided not to name. Ruth had $93.40 in cash. She sold a pair of pearl earrings at a pawn shop near the bus station for $180. The man behind the counter looked at her driver's license, then at her face. "You sure?" "No," Ruth said. He counted the bills anyway. The bus to Maine left Columbus at 9:20 that night. It smelled of diesel, damp wool, and the orange crackers a child kept crushing in the seat behind her. Ruth sat by the window, with Lydia's coat folded on her lap. The highway lights slid over the glass, one after another, pale and regular as stitches. She did not cry. She had cried in the guest bathroom at Elise's, with the fan running and a hand towel pressed to her mouth. On the bus, there was nothing to do but sit upright. So she sat upright. Port Mercy, Maine, was smaller than Ruth remembered. The bus dropped her beside a closed bait shop at 6:12 on a Thursday evening. The sky was the color of tin. Gulls screamed over the harbor, and the air carried the thick, low smell of tide mud, fish scales, and wood smoke. Ruth stood with her suitcases on the curb. The wind came straight through her coat. A woman in a green Subaru slowed beside her. She had gray hair cut at her jaw and a yellow raincoat patched, with duct tape at the cuff. "You Ruth Morrow's girl?" Ruth had not been called that in 40 years. "Yes." The woman looked toward the point where a dark finger of land reached into the Atlantic. "I'm Mara Kent. I knew your mother." Ruth waited. Mara looked at the suitcases. "You walking to Gull Point?" "I plan to. It's 3 miles. Roads washed out past Leary's Marsh. I can walk 3 miles. Not with those bags." Mara got out and opened the back hatch. The Subaru smelled of wet dog, old newspapers, and peppermint gum. There was no dog. Only a folded blanket, a toolbox, and 6 library books tied with a canvas belt. They drove without talking at first. The road narrowed after the fish plant, turning from asphalt to gravel, then to sand and broken shells. At Leary's Marsh, water shone in the ditches. Brown reeds scraped the car doors. The sky lowered until the clouds seemed to rest on the tops of the spruce trees. At the end of the road stood Gull Point Light. The tower was shorter than Ruth remembered. White paint peeled from the brick in long curls. The black lantern room tilted slightly, or seemed to. Beside it, the keeper's cottage crouched under a roof patched in 3 different colors. One shutter hung loose, banging softly in the wind. Bang. Pause. Bang. The sound went through Ruth's chest. Mara shut off the engine. "Your mother kept it standing." Ruth looked at the cottage. "She never told me why." "No," Mara said. "She wouldn't. That was all." The front door stuck at the bottom. Mara shouldered it open. Cold air rolled out, smelling of mildew, mouse droppings, salt, and the faint medicinal odor of old kerosene. Ruth stepped inside. The cottage had 2 rooms downstairs. A kitchen with a black iron stove, a sink stained brown, and a table pushed against the wall. A sitting room with a broken rocker and shelves of swollen books. Upstairs were 2 narrow bedrooms under the eaves. The wallpaper had faded to the color of tea. Mara set the suitcases down. "There's a pump out back. Water's brackish, but usable boiled. No power. Town cut it years ago." Ruth nodded. "I can bring lanterns. I have candles." Mara studied her face. The wind moved through a crack somewhere and made a thin whistling sound. "Your mother was stubborn," Mara said. "I know." "No, you don't." She left before dark. That first night, Ruth slept in Lydia's old bed wearing her clothes and both pairs of socks. Rain moved across the roof in hard sheets. Somewhere in the walls, a mouse worked steadily at something dry. At 2:40 in the morning, Ruth woke to a sound she could not place. Not rain, not wind, a low metal moan. She sat up. The lighthouse tower stood outside her bedroom window, black against the gray wash of moonlit cloud. The lantern room, empty for 50 years, groaned again as the wind passed through it. Ruth lay back down. She did not sleep. In the morning, she cleaned. There are forms of grief that can only be answered with a bucket. Ruth scrubbed the kitchen floor with cold water and lye soap until her fingers burned. She carried moldy curtains to the blackberry canes. The sun came out for 20 minutes at noon, thin and white, lighting the dust, as if the house were full of ground glass. On the 5th day, Mara returned with a box of groceries. and 2 hurricane lamps. "I'm not charity," Ruth said. "I didn't say you were." Mara set the box on the table. "Your mother once brought me cod stew every Thursday for 2 months. Why?" "My husband had died." Ruth looked at her. Mara removed a loaf of bread from the box. She never said much, just left the pot. Ruth turned toward the sink. The pump water smelled of iron. On the 7th day, Ruth opened Lydia's suitcase. It was not a suitcase, really. It was a black steamer trunk with brass corners gone green at the edges. Ruth had kept it in the attic in Ohio because Ben said it was too ugly for the bedroom and too heavy for the closet. Inside were Lydia's things: the wool coat, 3 aprons, a Bible with pressed sea lavender between Ecclesiastes and Isaiah, a recipe box shaped like a whale, and a Lighthouse logbook with gull point printed on the cover in flaking gold. Ruth sat at the kitchen table and opened it. Most of the entries were ordinary. October 3rd, 1968. Fog. Lamp cleaned. Wick trimmed. Sea rough. January 14th, 1969. Ice on South Steps. 1 schooner offshore. No signal. June 2nd, 1971. Celia came at dusk. Would not eat. Ruth stopped. Celia. She had heard the name once, maybe twice, when she was a child. A woman who lived near the point. A painter, Lydia said. No one respectable, Ben's mother said later. Ruth turned the page. August 19th, 1971. Red pane caught 7th stair at 6:43. Still safe. The next pages held similar notes. Red pane. 7th stair. Still safe. Ruth read until the light failed. The next evening, at 6:30, she walked to the lighthouse. The tower door opened with Lydia's iron key. The lock resisted, then gave with a sound like a cough. Inside, the air was colder than outside and smelled of rust, wet stone, and old bird nests. The spiral stairs rose along the wall, narrow and iron. Ruth climbed slowly, one hand on the rail. At the 7th stair, she stopped. Nothing. She stood there, with the logbook under one arm, and waited while the sun lowered behind the cottage. The lantern room above still held pieces of the old Fresnel lens, though most of it had been removed when the Coast Guard decommissioned the light. 1 red pane remained, cracked diagonally, catching the western sun. At 6:47, a square of red light slid down the tower wall. It touched the 7th stair. Then the stair glowed. Ruth bent. The iron step was not solid. Its back edge had a seam, almost invisible under rust. She worked her fingers beneath it and lifted. A small hollow lay inside. In it was a brass key, a folded canvas packet, and a photograph. The photograph showed Lydia at 30 or so, standing beside a tall woman in paint-stained trousers. The woman had short dark hair and a face turned partly away from the camera. Behind them, the sea rose white against the rocks. On the back, in Lydia's handwriting, were 3 words: Celia and me. Ruth unfolded the canvas packet. Inside was a note. Not a letter, only a sentence. Open the room that looks empty. Ruth went up. The lantern room was round and narrow. Broken panes rattled in their frames. The old mechanism stood in the center, bronze gone dull, gears furred with salt. Ruth walked around it once, then twice. The room looked empty. She almost laughed. Then she saw the wall panel. It was behind the place where the red pane caught the sun. A section of curved wood beneath the window, painted the same gray as the rest. But the screws were brass, not iron, and one had a slot polished clean by use. The brass key fit into a small hole hidden under a flake of paint. The panel opened inward. Cold, dry air touched Ruth's face. The space behind it was no wider than a closet, but taller than a man. Oilcloth bundles stood upright against the wall. Some were tied with sail rope. Others were wrapped in brown paper brittle as dead leaves. Ruth carried the first bundle down to the cottage. She set it on the kitchen table. Her hands were steady until she began untying the rope. Inside was a painting. Not a pretty painting. Not a harbor scene for tourists. A woman in a yellow coat stood at the edge of black water, her face turned away. The sky above her was green-gray, storm-heavy, streaked with a blade of white light. The paint was thick in some places, scraped nearly bare in others. Ruth could smell linseed oil even after all those years. In the lower corner, signed in a narrow hand, was a name. Celia Vale. Ruth unwrapped another. A kitchen table with 3 blue cups, and no people. Another, a child asleep in a chair beside a cold stove. Another, a red lighthouse pane casting light across a woman's open hand. By midnight, there were 9 paintings leaning against the cottage walls. Ruth sat among them, with a lamp on the floor. Outside, the sea moved in and out against the rocks. The paintings did not feel like money. They felt like witnesses. Mara came the next morning and found Ruth at the table, with the paintings around her. For once, Mara had nothing to say. She removed her rain hat and held it in both hands. "My God," she said. "You know them?" "I know the name." Ruth waited. Celia Vale painted here in the 50s and 60s. Nobody saw much of the work. Her brother claimed she destroyed it before she died. She didn't. No. Mara stepped closer to the woman in the yellow coat. No, she certainly didn't. There were 32 paintings in the lighthouse wall. There were also 11 sketchbooks, 3 sealed envelopes, and a legal document wrapped in waxed cloth. Ruth did not open the envelopes first. She opened the legal document because she had learned, late and thoroughly, that paper mattered. The document was dated October 9th, 1973. It transferred ownership of all works, studies, sketches, letters, and physical materials stored at Gull Point Light and Keeper's Cottage, from Celia Vale to Lydia Morrow, and upon Lydia's death to Lydia's daughter, Ruth and Morrow Weller. It was signed by Celia, witnessed by 2 names, notarized in Knox County, Maine. Ruth read it 3 times. Then she opened the first envelope. It was from Lydia. "Ruthie, if you have found this, then the house has finally done what I could not. It has spoken." Ruth put the letter down. The lamp hissed softly on the table. She picked it up again. "Celia was my friend before she was anything else. People will tell you other things. Let them." She came to the point in 1954 with 2 suitcases, $6, and a face that looked like it had forgotten sleep. Her family had money. That was not the same as love. She painted because breathing was not enough. When she got sick, her brother came for the paintings. Not for her, for what they might become. Celia had not been famous then. He still smelled money. Some men do. She gave the work to me because I was the only person who did not ask for it. I hid it because she asked me to. Later, I kept hiding it because I saw the way your husband looked at anything that could be sold. Ben was not cruel, but he was easy with other people's sacrifices. I did not trust that. Ruth stopped reading. The cottage settled around her. A board clicked in the wall. "I know I was not soft with you. I know you wanted a mother who came to school plays and remembered cake. I was out here more than I should have been. I told myself I was protecting your future. Maybe I was also hiding from my life. Both can be true. These paintings are yours. Not Ben's. Not your children's. Yours. There is a trust file at Harrow and Pike on Water Street. Ask for the Morrowvale papers. If old Mr. Pike is gone, his daughter will know. Do not let anyone hurry you. People who rush you are usually reaching for something. Trust the one who brings food when you have nothing to offer." Your mother, Lydia. Ruth folded the letter. She did not cry. Instead, she rose and washed the coffee cups in water that smelled faintly of salt. Mara sat across from her and watched. "My office kept those trust records," Mara said. "You were town clerk? 29 years. Do you remember them?" "I remember your mother paying the filing fee in quarters." Ruth looked out the window at the lighthouse. The morning light was flat and silver. A gull landed on the broken fence and screamed once into the wind. "What are they worth?" Ruth asked. Mara put her hat back on the table. "Enough to make people behave badly." That afternoon, Mara drove Ruth to Water Street. Harrow and Pike occupied the second floor above a marine supply store. The stairwell smelled of rope, printer ink, and wet boots. Mr. Pike had died in 2008. His daughter, Susan Pike, was 61 and wore tortoiseshell glasses on a chain. She listened without interrupting. Then she went to the file room and returned with a gray archival box. "Morrowvale Trust," she said. Ruth touched the lid. Inside were copies of the transfer document, tax records, Celia's death certificate, Lydia's handwritten inventory, and a letter of instruction. Susan Pike read quietly for 10 minutes. "The cottage and contents are in trust for you alone. Separate property. Established before your marriage. Properly recorded. My children. No claim. They'll try. People try all sorts of things." Susan closed the file. Trying is not winning. Mara knew an art conservator in Portland. That was how small towns worked. Someone always knew a woman who had moved away and become exactly the kind of person needed. Dr. Simone Avery arrived 6 days later in a navy wool coat, with a magnifying lamp, cotton gloves, and 2 assistants who spoke in whispers. She spent 4 hours in the cottage. She examined canvas edges, stretcher bars, signatures, pigments, paper, provenance. Ruth made coffee and did not ask questions. At 3:15, Simone removed her gloves. "Mrs. Weller," she said, "this is not a collection." Ruth waited. "It is a life's work." The kettle clicked on the stove. Simone looked at the woman in the yellow coat. Celia Vale has been reassessed in the last decade. There were only 7 confirmed works in private hands. This changes everything. "How much?" Simone exhaled through her nose. "With authentication, careful placement, and no publicity, until we control the story, 12 to 18 million, possibly more." The number did not enter Ruth all at once. It came in pieces. Property taxes, a roof, a truck, a lawyer, her ring. Then it moved past those things and became something larger and stranger. A room with heat. A woman not afraid to answer the phone. Simone leaned forward. "Do not sell quickly. I need some money now." "How much?" Ruth looked around the cottage. "Enough to stand up." Simone nodded. "That can be arranged. If you have come this far, with Ruth, stay with her." Because what her children forgot was not just a lighthouse. It was the one part of her life that had been waiting for her to come back. The first private sale took 12 days. 2 small studies went to a museum board member in Boston for $410,000. The money arrived by wire on a Tuesday morning. Ruth sat at Susan Pike's desk while the bank confirmed it. No one clapped. No music played. Susan printed the receipt and placed it in a folder. Ruth ran her finger over the numbers. Then she paid the back taxes, all $8,742. 16. She paid the next 3 years in advance. She hired a roofer from Camden, a plumber from Rockland, and an electrician named Boyd, who smelled of coffee and sawdust. She bought a used silver Subaru with 84,000 miles and a heater that worked. She opened a checking account in Port Mercy and kept every receipt in a blue binder Mara gave her. On the cover, Mara wrote, "Ruth, proof." The cottage changed slowly. New shingles first, then windows, then heat, then a stove that lit without matches. Ruth slept better when the house stopped breathing cold air through every seam. She did not call Grant. She did not call Elise. Silence, when removed from people who think they own you, sounds like defiance. Elise noticed first. She called Ruth's old number and found it disconnected. She called Grant. Grant called the Westerville Bank and learned nothing. Then he searched county records in Maine because Grant had always believed a person could be understood by public documents. He found the taxes paid. He found the contractor permits. He found the trust reference. And 2 weeks later, on a wet Monday in May, Elise's black SUV came slowly down the Shell Road to Gull Point. Ruth watched from the kitchen window. Elise stepped out wearing white sneakers too clean for mud and a beige coat belted tight at the waist. She looked at the cottage, the new roof, the repaired windows, the Subaru. Her face changed. Not much. Enough. Ruth opened the door. "Hello, Elise." "Mom." The wind pulled at Elise's hair. "You fixed it." "Some of it." "With what money?" Ruth wiped her hands on a dish towel. "I managed." "You left Ohio with nothing." "No. I left with what you missed." Elise looked toward the lighthouse. Ruth watched her. When Elise was 7, she had carried injured birds home in shoeboxes. She cried when worms dried on the sidewalk after rain. Ruth remembered that girl so clearly it sometimes made the woman in front of her seem like a badly cast replacement. "Grant's worried," Elise said. "Grant is curious. He thinks someone is taking advantage." Ruth almost smiled. Someone already did. Elise looked down. For a moment, Ruth thought she might say something true. Instead, she said, "We just want you safe." Ruth closed the door halfway. "I am safe." 3 weeks later, a county deputy served Ruth with papers on the porch. The envelope was thick. The paper inside was colder than the sea air. Grant and Elise Weller were petitioning the probate court to appoint Grant as guardian and conservator over Ruth and Weller, citing cognitive decline, isolation, undue influence by unknown parties, unexplained financial activity, and relocation to an unsafe coastal property. Ruth read it standing beside the repaired porch rail. A fly moved against the kitchen window. The ocean sounded tired. She read the petition again. Then she placed it in the blue binder marked proof. Mara came at dusk. She brought clam chowder in a glass jar and a loaf of brown bread wrapped in foil. Ruth had not called her. Mara simply appeared, as she had learned to do for people who were too proud to ask. At the kitchen table, Mara read the petition. They're saying you're confused. Yes. You paid 3 years of taxes and cataloged 32 paintings. Yes. You have a doctor? In Ohio. You'll need her. I know. Mara tapped the page. And the art. Susan says we disclose enough. Not all. Good. Ruth looked at Lydia's letter, lying beside the lamp. People who rush you are usually reaching for something. The hearing was set for June 18, 2024. Ruth used every day before it. She flew to Ohio and saw her physician of 17 years. Dr. Kaminsky gave her a full cognitive screening, then wrote a letter stating Ruth was fully capable of independent decision-making. Ruth did not visit Grant. She did not visit Elise. She slept one night in a hotel near the airport, where the hallway smelled of carpet cleaner and waffles. Back in Maine, Susan Pike prepared the trust documents. Simone Avery prepared a confidential valuation summary. Mara helped Ruth copy receipts, permits, bank statements, tax records, contractor invoices, insurance forms, and a chronological timeline of every action Ruth had taken since arriving at Gull Point. The blue binder became 3 binders, then 4. Ruth labeled them in black marker. Taxes, trust, medical, sales. The night before court, Ruth sat in the kitchen with Mara. Fog pressed against the windows. The lighthouse tower was invisible except for its base, a white blur beyond the glass. Mara drank tea without sugar. Grant will make you look lonely, she said. I am lonely. That's not incompetence. No, he'll make you look angry. I am angry. That's not incompetence either. Ruth looked at her hands. The pale mark from her wedding ring had nearly faded. What is it then? Mara asked. What? What are you? Ruth listened to the foghorn far out on the water. One long note, then silence. Awake, she said. Mara nodded. Say that if you need to. The courthouse in Rockland was built of gray stone and smelled of floor wax, damp wool, and old paper. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Ruth wore a navy dress, low shoes, and Lydia's iron key on a chain under her collar. Grant sat with his attorney on the left side. He wore a charcoal suit, and the expression he used when talking to insurance adjusters. Elise sat beside him, twisting something in her lap. Ruth saw the velvet pouch. Her ring. She looked away. Susan Pike sat beside Ruth, with 4 binders stacked in front of her. The judge was a thin man in his 70s, with white eyebrows and a voice like dry leaves. Grant's attorney stood first. He described Ruth as elderly, recently widowed, isolated, vulnerable, and engaged in unexplained financial activity. He said she had abandoned family support. He said she was living near a dangerous shoreline. He said unknown individuals had inserted themselves into her affairs. Ruth listened. The words moved around the room and did not touch her. Then Susan Pike stood. She did not raise her voice. She presented Ruth's medical letter, the cognitive assessment, the trust, the tax receipts, the bank statements, the contractor invoices, the vehicle title, the insurance policy, the documented art sale, the preliminary appraisal. She explained that Ruth had inherited Gull Point and its contents through a valid trust established by Lydia Morrow decades before Ruth's husband died. She explained that Ruth had paid taxes, stabilized a historic property, managed funds, hired professionals, and maintained records with more care than many businesses. The judge looked at Grant. Do you have medical evidence? Grant's attorney adjusted his cuff. No, Your Honor. Any physician statement? No. Any financial irregularity? We have concerns. Concerns are not evidence. The courtroom became very quiet. The judge opened the medical binder again, then closed it. Mrs. Weller appears to be managing her life with considerable competence. Ruth looked at the table. There was a scratch in the wood shaped like a river. The judge dismissed the petition. No one moved for several seconds. Then Grant stood too quickly, his chair scraping the floor. In the hallway, he caught up, with Ruth near the vending machines. The machines hummed behind him. A package of powdered donuts hung crooked behind the glass. "What did you find out there?" he asked. Ruth held the binders against her chest. "My mother left me something." "What?" "Enough. I'm your son." "Yes. You can't just shut us out." Ruth looked at him. He had Ben's hairline now, Ben's shoulders, Ben's habit of leaning forward when he wanted agreement. "You shut me out first," she said. "That's not fair." "No." The word surprised him. Ruth shifted the binders in her arms. "No, Grant. It wasn't." His face hardened. "I'll keep fighting. I know. You'll need family eventually." Ruth touched the key beneath her collar. "I needed family in March." Grant looked away first. Elise stood near the courthouse doors, the velvet pouch in her hand. Her mascara had run under one eye. She looked younger that way, tired and plain and not carefully arranged. "Mom," she said. Ruth stopped. Elise held out the pouch. "I'm sorry." Ruth did not take it at first. People passed around them carrying folders, phones, coffee, ordinary troubles. "I told myself it was estate inventory," Elise said. "I knew it wasn't." Ruth opened the pouch. The ring lay inside, gold worn thin at the bottom, diamonds small and cloudy from years of soap. It looked less valuable than Ruth remembered and more precious. She closed the pouch. "Why did you do it?" Elise looked toward the floor. "Because," Grant sounded certain. "That's not an answer." "No." Elise wiped her face. "Because I didn't want to be responsible for you." There it was. Small. Ugly. True. Ruth placed the pouch in her coat pocket. "You can come to Gull Point," she said, "when you want to see me. Not what I have." Elise nodded. Her mouth trembled, but she said nothing. That was the first decent thing she had done in months. Summer came bright and brief. The wild roses along the road opened in June, pink and reckless, dropping petals into the ruts. The cottage smelled of fresh paint, coffee, and the sea. Ruth learned the sounds of the place. The knock of the loose gate, the tick of cooling pipes, Mara's Subaru coughing before it turned the bend. The paintings went into climate-controlled storage in Portland, except for one. The woman in the yellow coat stayed in the cottage. Ruth hung it above the kitchen table. Simone arranged a museum acquisition for 6 works and a private placement for 4 more. Ruth did not become loud with money. She became precise. She paid taxes. She set aside reserves. She fixed what needed fixing. Then she bought the old fish market in Port Mercy for $74,000. It had been empty since 2018. The floors slanted toward the harbor, and the walls smelled permanently of cod. Boyd rewired it. Mara found donated chairs. Susan Pike agreed to come every other Wednesday. A retired benefits counselor from Augusta came twice a month. They painted the front door blue. The sign read, "The Beacon Table. Legal aid. Housing help. Coffee." Ruth did not name it after herself. She had no interest in seeing her name on a sign. The first woman came in before they officially opened. 72, recently widowed, with a son who had convinced her to sign over a deed in exchange for help managing things. She carried her papers in a grocery bag. Ruth made coffee. The woman apologized for crying. Ruth put a napkin beside her cup. "Take your time," she said. By September, the Beacon Table was open 4 days a week. Some people came for legal help. Some came for forms. Some came because the coffee was free and the room was warm and no one treated them as if they had already become a burden. Mara ran the front desk. Susan Pike handled referrals. Ruth washed cups, listened, wrote checks, and learned how many ways a person could be quietly stripped of a life. Elise came in October. She arrived alone, in jeans and an old sweatshirt Ruth recognized from college. She brought no questions about money, no folder, no husband, no Grant. Ruth was repainting the porch rail when Elise walked up the path. The air smelled of leaves, salt, and distant wood smoke. "I brought lunch," Elise said. Ruth looked at the paper bag. "What kind?" "Turkey. No onions." Ruth nodded. They ate on the porch. For a while, they spoke only of weather, the road, Elise's daughter, the price of gas. Then Elise looked toward the lighthouse. "I don't know how to be your daughter now." Ruth wiped mustard from her thumb. "Start there." Elise stared at her sandwich. "I was awful." "Yes." The gulls moved. Over the water, white against a hard blue sky. "Do you hate me?" Ruth thought about lying. "No." Elise closed her eyes. Ruth looked at the peeling skin around her own thumbnail. But I don't trust you yet. Elise nodded. That's fair. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. It was a door unlatched. Grant did not come. He sent one letter, through an attorney, then another. Susan answered both. After that, nothing. Ruth heard from Elise that Grant had told people his mother had been manipulated by outsiders. That was easier for him than the truth. Ruth let him have his easier story. She had work. On the evening of November 3rd, the town held a small gathering at Gull Point. Not a ceremony. Ruth disliked ceremonies. Mara called it turning on the porch light, though what they had restored was not the Coast Guard lamp. Boyd had wired a modest beacon inside the old lantern room, shielded and approved, decorative, not navigational. Still, when it came on, people grew quiet. The light turned slowly behind the cracked red pane, then passed clear across the darkening yard, over the repaired fence, over Mara's green Subaru, over the faces of women who had come from the beacon table with casseroles and folding chairs. Elise stood near the steps, with her hands in her coat pockets. Ruth stood alone by the tower door. In her pocket was Ben's ring, the one Elise had returned. Ruth had not put it back on. Some things, once removed, did not return to the same place. Around her neck was Lydia's iron key. The beam turned again. White light. Red light. Dark. Then white again. Ruth looked up at the lantern room and thought of her mother climbing those stairs in winter, carrying secrets in both hands. She thought of Celia painting a woman in a yellow coat. She thought of Ben, who had loved her and still let other people make her smaller. She thought of Grant at a kitchen table, sliding a worthless thing toward her because he could not imagine value, without a clean title and a recent appraisal. The light crossed Ruth's bare hand. For one moment, the pale mark, where her ring had been shown brighter than the rest of her skin. Mara came to stand beside her. Cold night, she said. Yes. You all right? Ruth watched the beam move out, over the black water. Far below, in the cottage kitchen, women were laughing around a pot of coffee. The sound rose, through the open door, ordinary and alive. Ruth put her hand around the iron key. I am, she said, and the lighthouse kept turning.